You know that feeling when you get just a flash of curiosity, a really interesting idea, maybe a problem you think needs solving.
Oh, absolutely.
But then the second you try and actually grab it, pin it down, it sort of vanishes.
Right.
It's that huge, painful gap between a vague thought and a clear, actionable goal. And that's what we're talking about today.
And it's probably the single biggest reason projects fail, whether they're academic or, in the business world.
Yeah.
People jump in because an idea is exciting, but they never stop to ask, is this problem actually solvable by me right now?
So our mission in this deep dive is to give you a system for that.
Exactly. It's a powerful three-part checklist. And if you run your big ideas through these gates we're about to discuss, stating, delimiting, and evaluating, you basically guarantee that what you're tackling is rigorous, manageable, and actually worthwhile.
It's like the ultimate feasibility study for any big project.
It really is. So let's dive into that very first step, which is all about crafting the perfect statement of the problem. The whole framework here is built on 3 criteria that you absolutely have to meet.
Okay, let's get into it. What's the very first requirement for a good research problem?
The first rule is that the problem has to be about the relationship between 2 or more variables.
2 or more, okay.
Yeah. I mean, research isn't just about collecting a single fact, right? It's about seeing how things interact, correlation, causation, that kind of thing.
So just asking, is social media popular? That's just fact-finding.
Right.
But if I ask, what's the relationship between daily social media use, that's variable 1, and, say, anxiety scores in young adults, variable 2?
Now you've got a research problem. That distinction is everything.
Okay, so that's the first criterion. What's number 2?
The second is that the problem must be stated, and this is a quote, clearly and unambiguously in right form.
In right form. I feel like that's where people get tripped up. What does that actually mean? Is it just about sounding smart?
Not at all. It's about structure. Right form usually means you're framing it as either a question or a hypothesis.
A testable statement.
A testable statement, exactly. So you can't just say, I think social media is bad. That's an opinion. It has to be a question, like, to what extent does X affect Y?
And getting that clarity up front saves you just months of backtracking later.
Oh, easily. Because everyone on your team or your professor knows exactly what you're trying to prove or disprove.
So we have variables and we have clarity. What's the third critical piece?
The third is testability. The problem has to be amenable to testing. This is the big so what factor.
The so what?
Yeah. If you state a problem that you can't possibly measure or observe, well, it's not a research problem. It's more of a philosophical question.
Can you give an example of something that would fail that testability check?
Well, a classic one is something like, what is the meaning of life? It's a fascinating question, but we don't have the empirical tools, the surveys, the scales to collect data on it and come to a testable conclusion.
You can't solve what you can't measure.
Exactly. The whole point of this first step is to make sure that when you're done, you actually have an answer.
Okay, so that really sets the foundation. It's a high bar. Once we've figured out what the problem is, the next step is figuring out where to draw the line.
Yes. This brings us to the second section, delimiting the problem. If the problem statement is your anchor, delimitation is the chain. It keeps you from drifting out into the middle of the ocean.
Trying to study everything and ending up studying nothing.
You've got it.
Ugh.
It's all about making the project manageable by drawing some really hard lines around its scope.
And the sources give us 4 specific areas to delimit. Let's start in the first 2.
Okay. The first is that you have to delimit your study to certain variables. You have to clearly state which variables you're studying, which also means you're choosing which ones you're not studying.
That sounds harder than it looks. I mean, if I'm studying a new teaching method, there are a million other variables, right? The teacher's experience, the student's backgrounds.
And you have to consciously exclude them for the purpose of this specific study. You might say, for now, I am only looking at the method's impact on test scores, not on student engagement or anything else.
You're simplifying the equation.
You have to. Otherwise, it's a tangled mess. You pick your target, you ignore the noise for now.
Okay, that's variables. What's the second delimitation?
The second is the area or level. This is all about context. So are we talking about primary school, high school, university?
Or a specific company, or a specific country.
Exactly. Let's say you're studying generative AI in writing. That's a huge topic.
Huge.
If you don't delimit the area, you could be looking at third graders using it for homework and professional copywriters using it for ad campaigns.
Yeah.
Their situations are completely different.
So you'd have to specify something like, this study is only looking at undergraduate humanities students at public universities.
Yes. You narrow the context so your findings are actually meaningful for that specific group.
That makes perfect sense. Okay, let's talk about the third aspect, because this one feels very practical. The sample size.
This is where the ideal world of research crashes right into the real world.
Ah, right.
Because you're trying to balance two things. On one hand, your sample has to be big enough to be representative of the group you're studying.
For the science to be good.
For the science to be good. But on the other hand, you have to look at your actual constraints: time, energy, and money.
And this is where it gets really real, isn't it? We all want the perfect, massive sample size. But then you look at your calendar, you look at your bank account.
And that number shrinks fast. You might need 50,000 people for a nationally representative sample, but you only have the time and money to survey 500.
Which means your problem, as you defined it, isn't properly delimited. It's not feasible.
It's not. It's a failure in the design phase.
Hmm.
You have to match your sample to your resources.
What's the final area of delimitation?
The final piece is your approach, your research strategies and tools. You have to decide this up front.
So am I doing a quantitative study with surveys or a qualitative one with interviews?
Precisely. You can't just start collecting data and figure out your method later. The method you choose sets the final boundary on what you can actually do. You have to commit.
Okay. So we've defined the problem. We've built a fence around it to keep it manageable. Now we get to the final step, the reality check.
Section 3, evaluating the problem. And this part requires some brutal honesty.
How so?
The source material lays out several searching questions you have to ask yourself. And the key is, the research is only appropriate if you can answer yes to all of them.
All of them? That's strict.
It's very strict. And the first one is the big one. Is the problem significant?
Meaning, would the answer actually matter to anyone?
Exactly. If you found the solution, would it make any difference? If the answer is no, you stop. Right there. Don't waste your time on something trivial.
That's the ultimate gut check, isn't it? Is this just a curiosity for me, or is it a real contribution?
Right. And right after that, you have to ask, is the answer already available?
So do your homework. A thorough literature review.
A very thorough one. Because if someone has already published a definitive, well-respected answer to your exact question, you either need to find a new angle or move on.
But what if you find something similar, but you think your approach is better, or it's for a different group of people?
That's the nuance. Finding a similar study isn't a deal breaker, but you have to be able to argue that your work fills a specific gap. Maybe you're testing an American finding in a European context. That's a valid gap.
But the core question can't have been completely settled.
Not definitively, no. And then the third question is the broadest one. Is the problem feasible? Can you, the researcher, actually carry this out and get to a successful conclusion?
This sounds a lot like delimitation.
It's related, but it's more of a final check. Delimitation is about design. This is about, can you physically pull it off, even with a good design?
And now we get into the really personal questions. It's not just about the problem anymore, it's about you.
That's right. You have to ask, am I, the researcher, skillful enough to collect and analyze the data?
Oof.
Yeah. I mean, if your study requires complex statistical modeling and you only know basic math, you've hit a wall.
Unless you can bring someone else in.
Right. But you have to account for that. Then you have to ask, are the data I need actually accessible?
It doesn't matter how smart you are if the information is locked away in some corporate vault or a sealed archive.
Exactly. And then back to the most real constraint of all. Do I have enough time? If the study needs 5 years of observation and you only have funding for 2,
the project fails. It's that simple.
It's that simple.
This brings us to the last question on the evaluation list. And I have to say, this one is the most interesting to me, the one that's not about skill or data.
It's my favorite one, too.
Yeah.
That asks, does the researcher have the courage and determination to overcome the difficulties they will inevitably encounter?
Courage and determination. That's amazing. It's written right into a technical framework.
It is. The methodology itself acknowledges that research is hard. Things will go wrong. Experiments will fail. And it asks, do you have the personal grit to push through that?
It's the human element. You can tick all the other boxes. The problem is significant. You have the skills. You have the time. But if you know you'll crumble at the first major setback,
then the problem is not a good fit for you. Not right now. The evaluation forces you to align your goal, not just with reality, but with your own mental and emotional readiness.
So if the answer to any of these questions is no, you walk away.
You walk away, or you redefine the problem until all the answers are yes. That's the power of the framework. You move from that fuzzy spark of interest to a completely vetted plan.
You've stated the problem, you've delimited it, and you've run a tough reality check on it and on yourself.
And for you, the listener, this whole process is a massive shortcut. It's a way to avoid learning things the hard way.
Right. You don't have to spend 6 months on a project only to realize the data you need doesn't exist.
Or that the question you were asking was already answered 10 years ago. You're doing all of that risk assessment up front.
Which brings us all the way back to that last, and maybe most important, criterion.
Courage and determination.
Yeah. It's just so powerful that a formal research method explicitly requires personal grit to even get started.
It is. And it leaves us with a really provocative thought for you to take away. If this system for creating knowledge demands that you assess your own internal fortitude, how often do you apply that same standard to your other goals?
When you're starting a new job or learning a new skill.
Are you honestly asking yourself, do I have the determination to see this through when it gets difficult? Because it will get difficult.
We spend so much time checking our external resources, our time and our money, but we forget to check our internal ones. That's a great final thought. Before you start your next big thing, maybe take a minute to measure your own courage.